If we have chosen the position in life in which we can most of all work for mankind, no burdens can bow us down, because there are sacrifices for the benefit of all. Then we shall experience no petty, limited, selfish joy, but our happiness will belong to millions. Our deeds will live on quietly, but perpetually at work, and over our ashes will shed the hot tears of noble people. History calls those men the greatest who have ennobled themselves by working for the common good. Experience acclaims as happiest the man who has made the greatest number of people happy, as Prometheus, having stolen fire from heaven, begins to build houses and to settle upon the earth. So philosophy, expanded to be the whole world, turns against the world of appearance, the same now with the philosophy of Hegel. Real tailors have the same existence that the imagined gods have. Has a real tailor any existence except in the imagination? If only in the general, or rather common, imagination of man. Bring paper money into a country where this use of paper is unknown, and everyone will laugh at your subjective imagination. Greek philosophy seems to have met with something with which a good tragedy is not supposed to meet, namely, a dull ending. This is a kind of mutual reconciliation society. Actual extremes cannot be mediated with each other precisely because they are actual extremes, but neither are they in need of mediation because they are opposed in essence. We develop new principles for the world. Out of the world's own principles, we do not say to the world, "Cease your struggles. They are foolish." We will give you the true slogan of struggle. We merely show the world what it is really fighting for, and consciousness, something that it has to acquire, even if it does not want to. Religious suffering is, at one and the same time, the expression of real suffering and a protest against real suffering. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people, the only intelligible language in which we converse with one another consists of our objects and their relation to each other. We would not understand a human language, and it would remain without effect. By one side it would be recognized and felt as being a request, an entreaty, and therefore a humiliation. Political economy regards the proletarian like a horse. He must receive enough to enable him to work. It does not consider him, during the time when he is not working, as a human being. It leaves this to criminal law, doctors, religion, statistical tables, politics, and the beetle. Our mutual value is for us the value of our mutual objects. Hence for us man himself is mutually of no value. The entire movement of history, as simply communism's actual act of genesis, the birth act of its empirical existence, is, therefore, for its thinking consciousness the comprehended and known process of its becoming. Natural science will in time incorporate into itself the science of man, just as the science of man will incorporate into itself natural science. There will be one science under private property. Each tries to establish over the other an alien power, so as thereby to find satisfaction of his own selfish need. The increase in the quantity of objects is therefore accompanied by an extension of the realm of the alien powers to which man is subjected, and every new product represents a new potentiality of mutual swindling and mutual plundering. Communism is for us not a state of affairs which is to be established an ideal to which reality will have to adjust itself. We call communism the real movement, which abolishes the present state of things. The conditions of this movement result from the premises now in existence. The premises from which we begin are not arbitrary ones, not dogmas, but real premises from which abstraction can only be made in the imagination. They are the real individuals, their activity, and the material conditions under which they lived, both those which they find already existing and those produced by their activity. These premises can thus be verified in a purely empirical way. Morality, religion, metaphysics, all the rest of ideology, and their corresponding forms of consciousness, thus no longer retain the semblance of independence. They have no history, no development, but men developing their material production and their material intercourse alter, along with this, their real existence, their thinking and the products of their thinking. For each new class, which puts itself in the place of one ruling before it, is compelled, merely in order to carry through its aim, to represent its interest as the common interest of all the members of society, that is, expressed in ideal form. It has to give its ideas the form of universality, and represent them as the only rational, universally valid. The materialist doctrine concerning the changing of circumstances and upbringing forgets that circumstances are changed by men, and that it is essential to educate the educator himself. This doctrine must, therefore, divide society into two parts, one of which is superior to society. One of the most difficult tasks confronting philosophers is to descend from the world of thought to the actual world. Language is the immediate actuality of thought, just as philosophers have given thought an independent existence. So they were bound to make language into an independent realm. History does nothing. It possesses no immense wealth. It wages no battles. It is man, real, living man, who does all that, who possesses and fights. History is not, as it were, a person apart, using man as a means to achieve its own aims. History is nothing but the activity of man pursuing his aims. The productive forces are the result of man's practical energy, but that energy is in turn circumscribed by the conditions in which man is placed, by the productive forces already acquired, by the form of society which exists before him, which he does not create, which is the product of the preceding generation. The hand mill gives you society with the feudal lord, the steam mill society with the industrial capitalist. Economists explain how production takes place in the above-mentioned relations, but what they do not explain is how these relations themselves are produced. That is, the historical movement, which gave them birth, and Pradhan, taking these relations for principles, categories, has merely to put into order these thoughts. Machines were, it may be said, the weapon employed by the capitalist to quell the revolt of specialized labor. The working class, in the course of its development, will substitute for the old civil society an association which will exclude classes and their antagonism, and there will be no more political power properly so called, since political power is precisely the official expression of antagonism in civil society. What is a Negro slave? A man of the black race. A Negro is a Negro. Only under certain conditions does he become a slave. A cotton spinning machine is a machine for spinning cotton. Only under certain conditions does it become capital. torn away from these conditions, it is as little capital as gold is itself money, or sugar is the price of sugar. A house may be large or small. As long as the neighboring houses are likewise small, it satisfies all social requirement for a residence. But let there rise next to the little house a palace, and the little house shrinks to a hut. The little house now makes it clear that its inmate has no social position at all to maintain. The revolution made progress not by its immediate tragicomic achievements, but by the creation of a powerful, united counter-revolution, an opponent in combat with whom the party of overthrow ripened into a really revolutionary party. Men make their own history, but they do not make it as they please. They do not make it under self-selected circumstances, but under circumstances existing already, given and transmitted from the past. The tradition of all dead generations weighs like an nightmare on the brains of the living. The great mass of the French nation is formed by the simple addition of homologous magnitudes, much as potatoes in a sack form a sack of potatoes.